Hello, everyone, and welcome to Icelandic Crash Course. I hope this will be useful for you. So, góðan daginn, gaman að sjá ykkur, gaman að sjá ykkur. So, good day, good morning. It's nice to see you. We'll learn words and sentences like this during this talk. So, góðan daginn, gaman að sjá ykkur. But before we start, I want to introduce myself quickly because, as you might see from my name, I'm not Icelandic. So you might wonder, why is this person teaching Icelandic if she's not a native speaker? So I'm Finnish. I'm Siru, and I'm from. Well, I lived in Iceland for 6 years. So I studied in Icelandic, but before I studied in Icelandic, I was an au pair in this very, very, very tiny fishing village with like 500 people, and that's how I learned Icelandic with the little boys that I was taking care of during the day. So when I went to Iceland, I didn't speak any Icelandic. I knew how to say yes and no, but I didn't know how to pronounce it. I and I had studied other languages like Swedish and German. So I thought that, okay, maybe I will understand a little bit. But yeah, the first few weeks were a bit challenging because it was nothing that I had expected, but it was an adventure. And I learned with these four boys during the first year. I learned a lot, and the kids were amazing teachers. Um, but I was in Erabaki for a year as an au pair, and then I stayed in Reykjavik, which is the capital. I studied at the University of Iceland, Háskóli Íslands. I did my BA in Icelandic as a second language, so basically in Icelandic, but it was not for native speakers. So we learned everything about. Well, we it was in Icelandic. We learned the language. We learned about the literature, history, culture, Old Norse. So it was a very comprehensive course, which I really enjoyed. And then I did my master's in translation studies. Um, and I focused on Icelandic and Italian. I was supposed to focus on Finnish, but I couldn't study Finnish in Iceland. So I chose Italian. So yeah, I did my master's in translation. And I wrote my master's thesis and the BA thesis in Icelandic. So even though I haven't lived there for 10 years, my Icelandic used to be very, very good. And now, like when I go back there, it takes me a few days or to like get it back. But then when it comes back, it's like I was never away. So I guess most of you know where Iceland is, but since this is a global event, there might be some people who don't maybe know about Europe or haven't really seen where Iceland is, because it's a very small country. So you can see it. It's there in the middle, up north, and it's very little. And here to the right, you can see the map. It's not very big, but you can see the like the red dot. That's Reykjavik. That's the capital. And like maybe an hour away from there to the south, that's the village where I was working as an au pair. And that's the Icelandic flag below. I know it might be confusing, like all the Nordic countries have the flags with the cross, and people get confused, like, okay, which one is Icelandic, which one is Norwegian, but that's the Icelandic flag. And I know Icelandic might look very scary because of the long words and like all these accent marks over the letters and the strange letters as well. Um, but we'll get to it. Don't panic. So Icelandic is Íslenska, and it has around 314,000 native speakers. So it's quite small. And I was always taught, like, why are you learning this language? Like, it's not useful at all. It's very useful. Um, Maybe you cannot speak it every day in all the countries, but it's still useful, and it's beautiful, and it's worth every second, I think. It's a North Germanic language, so it's an Indo-European language. And it's like, I always say, like, to people who don't have any linguistic background, I say that it's like Swedish and Norwegian, but like 1,000 years ago, more or less. So that gives them an idea. And you can recognize Icelandic when you see it written. You can recognize it by the unique characters it has, or in Icelandic, sér íslenskir stafir. And you can see them here, and we'll talk about them later. But that's the easiest way to recognize, like, okay, this is Icelandic. And even though you see the many letters have the accent mark on it, that's not the accent, or the stress. The stress is always on the first syllable. So these accent marks, it just shows that it's pronounced, like the letter is pronounced differently. So like here you can see the ah with the accent. It doesn't mark the accent. It says that it's pronounced as ow instead of ah. So the stress is always on the first syllable. And there are 3 grammatical genders and 4 cases, like in German, for example. So there's masculine, feminine, and neuter, and then there's nominative, accusative, dative, and genitive. And we'll see more about that later as well. And here's the Icelandic alphabet. I put the phonetic explanation next to it because I mean, it might be confusing to see, like, okay, there's an ah and then there's the marked ah. So I'm just gonna go them through quickly so you can hear, if you're not very familiar with the phonetic writing. So let's go in the order. Um, so a, au, pie, tie, ed, e, je, f, gie, hau, i, j, kau, ek, M, N, O, P, R, S, T, U, no, sorry, U, U, Vav, X, I, Thor, I, Ö. And sometimes there are diphthongs that are pronounced differently. Like, for example, if you have A and U together, it's pronounced as Ö. So, for example, if you have been in Reykjavik, one of the most famous streets, it's called Laugavegur, but you write it as like Lauga, but it's Lauga. Or Saturday is Laugardag, but you write it like Laugar. So that's Ö. And then usually if you have an H and V, it's pronounced as like a KV. Like, for example, a knife, it's knivur. And then when you have 2 L's, it can be either ek or L, like a long L. For example, you might have botle, which is a coffee cup, or you can have caramella. So you have the double L. It can be quite tricky, but you'll get used to it. And then the double N, it can be like a TN or a long N. Like, for example, the word one is 8, but then you can say menning, which is a culture. And there are some other like like consonant clusters that change the pronunciation of the vowel, but there are quite a few different rules, and we have limited time, so I'm not going to explain it to you now. But if we have some examples, like when we learn some words, if there are some exceptions in the pronunciation, I will tell at that moment, so don't worry about it. About the double L, this is a very good example. this monster word that people were really afraid of. I mean, it looks very long, but it's actually three words put together. So there's a, here it's in genitive. So a is an island, and fjöll, or it's mountains, and then jökull is glacier. So when you put them together, you have Eyja, Fjalla, Jökull. So the double L is like a TL, but then you have air coming like through the sides of your mouth. If you speak Nahuatl, that's the same sound. So Eyja, Fjalla, Jökull. Now you can pronounce it, and you can tell it to your friends, like, hey, look what I learned on this beautiful Saturday. I can now say Eyja, Fjalla, Jökull. And like I said, Icelandic might look very scary, but here I have some examples of a few sentences with other Germanic languages. So you can see, like, okay, they might have very strange words because Icelandic is very conservative, so they don't take new words. Like, for example, helicopter. It's not called helicopter in Icelandic; it's called þyrla. So they use old words and come up with new ones that sound more Icelandic. I actually spoke about this the last year's Polyglot gathering. If you're interested, you can find the talk. But for example, what's your name in Icelandic is Hvað heitir þú? And if you speak Swedish, you can see that it sounds and looks more or less like Vad heter du? And I want to buy bread. Ég vil kaupa brauð. So again, you can see that, okay, kaupa and kaufen, or köpa, and brauð, bröd, brot, bread, might come from the same same root. And then my little car is red. In Icelandic is litli bíllinn mín rauður. So okay, rauður, rot, red, röd. So it looks scary because it looks, rauður doesn't really look like rot, but when you get accustomed to the sounds and like the constructions of the words, then you can see, like, okay, it makes it, it's not as scary as it looks. Rauður bíll, that was a red car. That was like one of the first things I learned with the little boys that I was working with, because there was a red car and one of them was crying, and I was like, oh, look, 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 röd bil in Swedish. And then he was like, where, what are you saying? It's not röd bil, it's röður bíll. Okay, thank you. So that was like one of the keys into Icelandic that I had. And I will always remember that when he said, like, it's not, what are you saying? It's not röd bil. So, tilbúin, are you ready to learn some Icelandic? Tilbúin, this is just a quick remark. That's because it's for everyone, so it's for men and women. So that's plural neuter, which is quite nice. So it's not like in Spanish you would say listos, which is like the masculine, but it also like covers the women. But tilbúin is neuter, so it's for everyone. So tilbúin. Let's start with some greetings. So kveðjur. These ones come from English, so hello or hi. And then when you see someone, you can say sæll for a guy, or for a woman, you say sæl. And then if you have someone who doesn't identify as a man or a woman, you can say sælt. So that's the neuter. And then you can say the longer version of sæll is sæll og blessaður, so like healthy and blessed. So sæll og blessaður for a man, sæl og blessuð for a woman, and sælt og blessað for the neuter. And then good morning or good day is góðan daginn. Góðan daginn. So the G becomes like a J, or in this case. Góðan daginn, or the shorter version, góðan dag. Góðan daginn, góðan dag. Good evening is góða kvöldið. Góða kvöldið, or gott kvöld. Gott kvöld. So when you have two T's, it becomes aspirated. So góða kvöldið and gott kvöld. And then when you say goodnight, you say góða nótt. Góða nótt. And when you leave, here you can say the rocket. You can say bye, like in English. Okay, so bye, or bless, which is blessed. So you can say either bless or bless. And then sjáumst. So here you see the with the mark and you. So that's sjáumst. And that literally means like we'll see each other. Sjáumst. Okay, so quickly. Hello, hi, sæll, sælt, sæll og blessaður, sæl og blessuð, sælt og blessað. Góðan daginn, góðan dag, góða kvöldið, gott kvöld, góða nótt, bye, bless or bless, and sjáumst. And let's introduce ourselves. So tölum saman, the title means let's talk together. Tölum, we are talking, or let's talk, and saman, together. When you want to ask for someone's name, you ask, hvað heitir þú? Hvað heitir þú? And you reply by, for example, saying, ég heiti Björk. If you're for example, the famous singer, ég heiti Björk. And to ask how the other person is, you can ask, hvað segirðu gott? Like, what do you say good? Hvað segirðu gott? And to reply, you say allt gott, for example, allt gott, en þú. So, hvað segirðu gott? Allt gott, en þú. And nice to meet you is gaman að kynnast þér. Gaman að kynnast þér. To say likewise, you say sömuleiðis. Sömuleiðis. So you can see here the sömu, it comes from sama, together, or the same. And leiðis is like, leið is a way or a road, so the same way. Gaman að kynnast þér, sömuleiðis. And the small important words are já and nei. Já, yes, and nei, no. Kannski is maybe. Kannski, and af hverju. Af hverju. Sometimes you hear Icelandic people say af hverju, but that's like when they speak very quickly. Af hverju. But it's literally af hverju, why. So já, nei, kannski, af hverju. And here's this joke about what dogs in Iceland sound like. Björk. But it's such a cute dog, so that's why I included the dog. And here are some other useful sentences. So to ask someone if they speak Icelandic, you ask, talar þú íslensku? Talar þú íslensku? And maybe when you go to Iceland and someone says something to you you don't understand, you can say ég skil ekki. Ég skil ekki. So here you have two Ks, so that becomes aspirated as well, like with the double T. So ég skil ekki. Talar þú íslensku? Ég skil ekki. And the other person might say allt í lagi. Allt í lagi. All right. Everything in order. Allt í lagi. To see you tomorrow when you leave and say hi to your friends that you have just met in Reykjavik, you can say sjáumst á morgun. Sjáumst á morgun. And to wish someone good luck, you say gangi þér vel. Gangi þér vel. And here you might hear like, okay, it's á, but it doesn't have the mark. But with an ng, the vowel before that is kind of like it had the mark. So gangi þér vel. And you will see another example of that later with the languages. So gangi þér vel. And great, frábært, frábært. For example, sjáumst á morgun. Já, frábært. Great. Fyrirgefðu, fyrirgefðu. You might think like, okay, it sounds like forgive, fyrirgefðu, and it's I'm sorry. And afsakið is also like I'm sorry, excuse me. Like for example, if I want to go somewhere and there's someone standing in front of me, I would say afsakið. So excuse me. And I don't know is ég veit ekki. Ég veit ekki. And if someone asks like, oh, could I get that coffee cup there? And they give it to you, they say gerðu svo vel. Gerðu svo vel. There you go. And when someone wishes you good, have a nice meal or enjoy your meal, they say verði þér að góðu. Verði þér að góðu. May it be good for you, literally. So they don't say like, they don't say well, they might say bon appetit, but verði þér að góðu is like enjoy. May it be good for you. And another important word in Iceland is skál. Skál. Cheers. I have just water here, but skál. And here are the numbers. I'm not asking you to remember everything right now, but here's just to see how they are close to other Germanic languages. So I'm just gonna go from 0 to 20 quickly. So 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then it's quite easy, like 21, 20. Oh, there's an error. Okay, the number 1, 8, it should be with 2 N's. The 8, the double T is a neuter. The other ones are masculine, sorry. 21, so 20 and 1. 22 is 22, and so on. Like, for example, 55 would be 50 or 5. But we will see that later when we learn how to say how old we are. So here, this is a bit complicated because the numbers in Icelandic from 1 to 4, they can be in all the 3 grammatical genders and in 4 different cases. And with the word for 1, it can be in singular and plural. Like, for example, I don't know, like, for example, in Spanish, you would say unas patatas, for example. So you can have like singular in plural or 1 in plural. But this is just to show, like, okay, if you hear, like, okay, klukkan tvö, at 2 o'clock, like, why is it not klukkan tveir? In masculine, like it should be ein, tveir, þrír, fjórir. But why is it klukkan tvö, klukkan fjögur? But that's because with the time, for example, you use neuter. And when you count, like if you have, I don't have any feminine things here right now, but if you have like, well, a shirt, ein peysa, and then you have 2 shirts, you have tvær peysur. It's complicated, but it's important to like recognize it. Like if you hear someone talk and you hear them use like different word for the number you were expecting to that, then it's a different case or a different gender. And when you start learning Icelandic, or you are already learning Icelandic, and you're like confused, like, okay, so if I want to say number 2 in neuter, for example, or if I want to say Björk, the name, in dative, I give someone to Björk, you can go to bin.arnastofnun.es, and there you can conjugate, like you can just put the verb or the word, and you see all the declinations, conjugations, everything. And it's like a Bible to me. So if I don't remember, like, okay, I don't remember what, like how this word is in I don't know, plural dative. I go there and I just bin it. I put it in there and it gives everything. So it's amazing. I highly recommend this page. And in order to be able to talk about yourself, I thought that maybe you want to learn how to say how old you are. But again, with numbers, it's a bit complicated. So I thought this would be a good example to like learn a bit about how the grammar works. So if someone asks you, hvað ertu gamall, for a guy, or for a girl, hvað ertu gömul, or if someone who doesn't identify as a male or a female, hvað ertu gamalt, that's the neuter. If you're 1 year old, you say ég er eins árs gamall. So that's a genitive. And so with the number 1, it's always genitive, eins árs. But then from 2 to 4, it's tveggja, þriggja, fjögurra. And then the other, you have them in the basic form. So this is just to show how it works. So for example, here you have 52. I'm 52 years old. Ég er 52 ára gamall, or gömul, gamalt. So here you can combine you can say the 20, 30, 40, and then the what you add to that. It's a bit complicated, but I hope like you can take a screenshot or come back, and here you can like see the pattern of how it's done. If you want to explain how old you are, like for example, I'm 34, so I would say ég er 34 ára gömul. But yeah, you can take a screenshot or come back or ask me if you see me in a room or in the Telegram group. You can be like, hey, how do you say this? But this is the formula of how it's done. And since this is a language event, I thought that you might want to learn to say what languages you speak. And there are so many languages in the world. So I just added some languages like that I thought that maybe most people speak, or it's written differently than you would maybe expect. So I added the language code, the ISO code for you, in case there's something that's written like very differently. Like for example, let's see, like for example, German. So you see the DE, it's Thysku. You would maybe think like, okay, maybe it could be like Germansku or something, but no, it's Thysku. So you can pick your languages from there. You can again take a screenshot, or come back, or and find other languages on Wikipedia as well. You have to, when you say that you speak a language, you have to put it in accusative. So all these are in accusative. For example, Thysku would be Thiska in nominative. So if there's a language missing, and you want to know how to speak or how to say a language, you can find me and ask me, and I will say it to you, or I will find out if I don't know. If it's a smaller language that I don't maybe know. But like here you have, for example, Hungarian, HU. It's ungversku. So here you hear that it's an NG, so it sounds like that you should have the accent, but it's not marked. So ungversku. What else is different? There's, for example, Montenegrin is svartfelsku, so C and R. So there are some different ones. That's why I added the ISO code, so you can find it. So if there's a language missing, find me and I will tell how it's said. So for example, if you want to say what language you speak, if you ask someone, you say hvaða tungumál talar þú? And then you can say ég tala, for example, íslensku, ensku, og frönsku. I speak Icelandic, English, and French. And if you want to ask someone what languages they are learning, you can ask hvaða tungumál ertu að læra? Hvaða tungumál ertu að læra? And you can answer ég er að læra, for example, spænsku og þýsku. Ég er að læra spænsku og þýsku. I'm learning Spanish and German. And to ask what languages would you want to learn? Hvaða tungumál langar þig til að læra? And then you can answer mig langar að læra japansku og ungversku, for example, Japanese and Hungarian. And to ask about the native language, hvert er móðurmálið þitt? So what is your mother language? Hvert er móðurmálið þitt? Móðurmálið mitt er, for example, klingonska. In my case, it would be móðurmálið mitt er finska. So in this case, it's in nominative. Móðurmálið mitt er finska. I see we are running out of time. Here are some other interesting words and sentences that you might find useful. So, I love you. Ég elska þig. Ég elska þig. Something you hear Icelandic people say a lot is þetta reddast. Þetta reddast. This will be all right. Everything will be all right. Þetta reddast. This is from a comedy show that people used to have like t-shirts and everything about, is ég er með 5 háskólagráður. Ég er með 5 háskólagráður. I have 5 university degrees. To say happy birthday is literally congratulations with birthday. Til hamingju með afmælið. Til hamingju með afmælið. And just til hamingju. Congratulations. It literally means like to luck or to happiness. Til hamingju. And now, because you know the numbers, you can ask, hvað er símanúmerið þitt? Hvað er símanúmerið þitt? What is your phone number? And you reply with the numbers in masculine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Má ég kyssa þig? Má ég kyssa þig? May I kiss you? You might want to say, reply, hættu þessu. Hættu þessu. Stop it. Another famous t-shirt I sometimes see here in Barcelona as well is Pabbi minn er lögga. Pabbi minn er lögga. My dad is a cop. Would you like to dance with me? Viltu dansa við mig? Viltu dansa við mig? And this is fun. Þetta er gaman. Þetta er gaman. And what is this? Hvað er þetta? Hvað er þetta? I'm going to have a beer. Ég ætla að fá mér 1 bjór. Ég ætla að fá mér 1 bjór. And when you get the beer, you can say hann or hún skal borga fyrir allt saman. Hann skal borga fyrir allt saman. He'll pay for everything. It might be useful. I didn't include the pronoun for neuter here because it might be a bit confusing. Because this is something I actually learned quite recently, because when I lived in Iceland, nobody really spoke about the like gender inclusive pronouns. So here you have the singular ones, so that I don't confuse you more. But here you have hann and hún, which is he and she, and then það, which is it, literally. And then you have the neuter pronouns for people who don't identify or who don't want to use hann or hún. And það is it's not really nice to use it about yourself. So you have hán, he, and hin. And I think you can choose which one you use. I'm actually not sure about this, but I wanted to include them. So here you like if you don't want to use han or hun, you don't have to use það because it's not really nice. So this is just to show that they have inclusive pronouns as well. And now you can actually answer some questions that you have learned during this very quick talk. we would need more time, but so now you can answer all these questions. What's your name? Hvað heitir þú? How are you? Hvað segirðu gott? How old are you? Hvað ertu gamall, gömul, or gamalt? Hvaða tungumál talar þú? What languages do you speak? Hvaða tungumál ertu að læra? What languages are you learning? Hvaða tungumál langar þig til að læra? What languages do you want to learn? Hvert móðurmálið þitt? What is your native language? Hvað símanúmerið þitt? What's your phone number? And viltu dansa við mig? Would you like to dance with me? And here is a quick conversation that after this talk you might be already able to understand. So, góðan daginn, hvað segirðu gott? Good day, how are you? Góðan daginn, allt gott en þú? Good day, all good, how are you? Allt fínt bara, hvað heitirðu? All good, what's your name? Ég heiti Björk, heitir þú Jón? My name is Björk, is your name Jón? Já, gaman að kynnast þér. Yes, nice to meet you. Já, sömuleiðis. Yeah, likewise. Hvaða tungumál talar þú? What languages do you speak? Ég tala íslensku, ensku og frönsku. Af hverju? I speak Icelandic, English and French. Why? Nei, vá, mér langar að læra frönsku. No, wow. I want to learn French. Viltu læra saman á morgun? Would you like to learn together tomorrow? Já, það væri gaman. Yes, that would be fun. Allt í lagi, sjáumst á morgun þá. Okay, let's see tomorrow then. Frábært, sjáumst, bless, bless. Great. We'll see. Bye bye. So here you can understand a basic conversation in Icelandic already. And hvar get ég haldið áfram? Where can I continue learning? Where can I continue? So if you go to if you search for Icelandic online, that's a very good page made by Háskóli Íslands, University of Iceland, where you can learn. You have listening comprehension and grammar and everything. And if you, I don't actually know where it is, but you can hear my voice there as well. Then there are some teachers in Italki. I haven't used Glossika myself, but I heard that it's good. UTalk, you have Icelandic as well. Memrise has courses in Icelandic. I haven't tried them, but Memrise has everything for all the languages. And then in Omniglot, you have other links and other useful information about Icelandic and basic words, and also you have everything at Omniglot. So if you want to look for like grammar links and everything, they have a very long list on that page. So takk fyrir, thank you, takk fyrir. Now it's time for questions, and if you have questions later, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, on the Telegram group. You might find me here in the in some language practice rooms or corridor. So yeah, if you have any questions. Okay. For example, how do you say thank you? I can't believe I didn't write that. I was too excited. So thank you is takk fyrir, or just takk, like I wrote takk fyrir. How close is Icelandic to other Nordic tongues? It's quite close. Well, not as close as like Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish, because they are quite close. So Icelandic, it was isolated for so long that it has stayed a bit different. But like the basic grammar and like all the old words and everything, they have the same roots. So I wouldn't say that it's very like mutually intelligible, but as I'm not a native speaker in any of those languages, I can't really say. But it's not as close as Swedish, Norwegian, and Danish, for example, are together. What does that word combining mountain, lake, glacier mean? Oh yeah, sorry. That was the volcano that erupted 12 years ago. I don't remember. I was in Iceland, but I don't remember. No, 14 years ago. Eyjafjallajökull. That's the mountain or the volcano that erupted, and like the whole Europe was people couldn't fly because of the ash. So, and it was all over the news, and nobody knew how to pronounce it. And I remember like one sketch show, I don't remember which one, they said that it's, yeah, we can just call it Kevin because nobody can say Eyjafjallajökull. So yeah, that was the volcano that in Iceland, like the most famous volcano. Um, Að plus verb, is that an infinitive? Does infinitive exist in Icelandic? Yes. Að plus the verb is the infinitive. Like for example, gaman að kynnast þér. Nice to meet you. So að kynnast is to like get to know someone. Að tala, to talk. So yeah, that's the infinitive. Is there a formal intimate you distinction in Icelandic? No. There used to be. For example, um, like yeah, there used to be, but it's not used anymore. You might have it like in the Bible, for example, but like when you speak to someone, for example, the president, you would just use the informal you, like tú in Spanish. And then in Iceland, you always call the other person by their first name. You never call them like Jonsson, for example, because that's not their, that's just like whose son or daughter they are. So you always use the first name. So um, when I met the president a few times, the president before the current one, I would say, "Hi, Oli, Olavur." Just use the first name. It sounds very impolite for someone, like for example in Finnish, I would use the formal tone, but in Icelandic, it's just informal, everything informal, and the first name. Why is I in I want to learn mig langar að læra not in nominative, yeah, in subject? Yes, that's something I don't remember what, I think it's called like quirky subject, but in Icelandic it happens sometimes that you have the subject of the sentence in another case, not in nominative. Um, for example, mig langar að læra, I want to learn. Uh, I think something is nice, or I think I find something funny, for example. Mér finnst eitthvað skemmtilegt. So mér and not ég. I think there are other languages with the same system, but of the languages that I speak, that's only Icelandic is the only one that has the quirky subject. I can try to find the link for that if you're interested. Just come and say hi, and I'll find it for you. Um, what about the relationship with Faroese? Are Icelandic and Faroese close enough? Yes, they're quite close enough. Like for example, I can read Faroese without any problems. And some, and once like the first time when I heard Faroese, I thought that they were just maybe like not knowing how to pronounce it, or like I was really confused because I understood everything, but they were pronouncing it very differently. And then I found out like, okay, it was Faroese. So of course there are differences because it's a different language, but it's much closer to Faroese is much closer to Icelandic than, for example, Swedish. Um, mm, mm, mm. Is great regional variation within the Icelandic language? Are there lots of dialects? Do most people speak a standard version? There are no dialects. Like sometimes you can hear that people pronounce something a bit differently. Like for example, they might not use the aspiration, or but it's. I remember once I joined a course at the university, and it was about Icelandic dialects, or Icelandic, Icelandic dialects, and it was like 10 credits or something, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a lot of work. And then the first lesson was like, okay, there are no dialects in Iceland, and I was like, how am I going to learn 10 credits about this? So I changed the course because it was not very useful for what I was studying in general. But no, they're like, everyone understands everyone, and like, yeah, because there are so few people who speak it, so there's not variation, basically. A good question, I forgot to mention that. There are some questions about how to say some languages, and I will write them to you later, because I'm not actually sure how they are said. Yeah, I think that's all. Yeah, if you have any more questions, I will be at the language practice room for Icelandic now later. I will just have to try to get you to work, but I will be there. And yeah, come and find me and ask me if you still have more questions. And I hope you learned something today. So takk fyrir mig og sjáumst. Bless, bless.